I agree, Mr. Chair. We could probably just proceed, and then we can always have them. It's recorded live, and you can upload it later. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Webinar now streaming live on custom live streaming services.
Yep.
Excellent.
It is streaming live. Yeah, it should be.
Here we go. I think that might be it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just popped
It's
up.
on. It's on.
Good.
How's that? Right.
Jonathan, you are muted.
Should be working now.
Okay.
Good.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. All
I
right.
warned you.
Where we left off
I need-
asking if there was anyone in the audience that had any questions regarding this application.
Which are we on the which one are we on?
We're on the public hearing.
For the sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no one in the audience with any questions. Is there anyone on the commission that have any questions for this?
Hola.
Okay.
I wonder if
Mr. Hyman?
this particular, what is really the significance of this text change? Can it be explained in the layman's term? What exactly is it, and what stage in the process is it?
It means when a developer puts in a development that they need to put in a sidewalk / multi-use path in front of their development. That wasn't a requirement up till now. Unless the commission believes that it is totally unnecessary. So the commission has the right to waive this if it deems it not necessary, but otherwise the developer would be required to put in a multi-use chur.
Is this a new requirement from the staff?
Say again, Ola?
Is this a new requirement from the staff?
It was a request that came in from a resident who's very active in multi-use trails and whatnot around in the community. And the staff believes, including Justin, that it was an appropriate request.
I know there was discussion about where does it connect to? Does it connect to a pathway or existing or future pathway within that area? Or is it just a path, but onto itself?
It could be unto itself, and it also could be a connection. And if the commission believes it's unto itself and unnecessary, they can waive it.
Thank you. Also, if you don't mind, I have another
You're
question.
muted, Brian.
How far along is this process? How far along is this in the process? Because I understand that they were supposed to come back with a final presentation, or is this the final presentation?
It's been approved, so if you approve it this evening, it would then be entered into the regulations in 2 weeks.
Yeah, this would be the last hearing on it.
Correct.
I guess to clarify, Ola, just as part of Complete Streets and the new practices that's done in local municipalities in the state and the federal, is that we want to create multi-use paths so it becomes a safer access for our users, especially local users. Bike paths, walk paths, shared paths. So right now, the way our amendments are listed, we don't have any of that in there. So we're safeguarding ourselves in the town to put it in there so that we can create these multi-use or safe paths for residents or pets or whatever you want to call it too. If we're walking a pet, riding a bike, whatever it is. So I think it's a common practice that most municipalities are putting in place so that we get the control versus a developer. But we can always take it out if it doesn't make sense, like Jonathan, and as you mentioned.
And now just for the purpose of the community of concerned people, now the car wash is out, and what is the other thing? The car wash, there are two things that were very contentious, the car wash and the gas station. They're out of the proposal. This is for the purpose of the community concerned, because these are the things that people are very concerned about.
Oh, I think this might be a different application.
It is, although this is completely different from those other text amendments.
Yeah,
Okay.
It has nothing to do with the Cottage Grove discussion.
right. That motion failed. This
Okay.
is different.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Goff, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one, which is sort of along the same lines as what Commissioner Heine sort of brought up. I'm fully in support of this text amendment, and I think it's, as Commissioner Hussein pointed out, this is something we need to really be integrating with complete streets, walkability, and so forth. The one thing I'm concerned about is the connectivity part of it. So, for example, just when we approved, or when this commission, wasn't me at the time, when this commission approved the Popeyes, they had put in a path, a short path on their property, which is completely appropriate. But at that time, it didn't really tie to anything because there's a gap between it and the sidewalk in front of the First Congregational Church. So ideally, when you put these things in, it would, increase connectivity by somehow at the same time looking at some of the gaps. Now, that's not necessarily obviously the developer of a project's responsibility to pay for or provide. But I'm just wondering if staff has thought anything about how to potentially modify this at a later date so that when something, again, like the Popeyes comes in, the developer does their job and puts in the path in front of their business, that the town will take some action to make sure it is connected. If there is something nearby and it's connected, there is a natural connectivity. How we can deal with that. Thank you.
That's it. Basically, Commissioner, would be a funding issue. The town certainly would like to see, and we do get complete street grants and grants to build in sidewalks similar to the one that just won on Mountain Ave. But clearly that's an issue that we're probably going to have to deal with, frankly, in terms of filling in the gaps. And I think, it's some towns have a fund to do that. We don't. And again, then there's also the opportunity if there's additional development along the same alignment, it'll be required to go in. But I think that's an answer. That's a question that I can't give you a firm answer to, but obviously would be looked at on a case-by-case basis at this point.
Thank you.
Not a particularly satisfactory answer, I would agree, but the best I can do at this point.
Okay, Mr. Millet, any questions?
I don't have any questions on this one, no.
Thank you. Ms. Blunt, any questions?
No, sir.
Ms. Marshall Neely, any questions?
I do have a clarifying question. Does it matter whether the street is a state street or a town street in situations like this?
On a state street, the state would have to obviously agree to it. Connecticut Department of Transportation have to agree to it.
Right.
But they've gotten much more progressive in putting in and welcoming sidewalks than they have in the past. So I don't think that would be an issue going forward.
Okay. Any other questions, Ms. Neely?
No, no.
Okay, Mr. Bolton.
Oh, I'm last again.
No, Mr.
Oh,
Hussein is
yeah, I
last.
thought you forgot me. I thought you
No.
forgot me for a second there. Okay, I was getting nervous. Um,
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Coleman, just a follow-up question. So you said that when it comes to streetscape, filling the gaps, we don't have the funds. Is it because we don't go after grant money for that type of work?
No, we don't have it. No, we go after all the grant money we can get, Commissioner. It's because we don't have a local fund that some communities
Oh.
have. You know, we don't have a line item in the capital improvement fund
Hmm.
that says, you know, like we do for paving streets, but we don't have one in there for installing sidewalks.
Are there significant dollars available for grant funding for that type of street improvement?
For
From the state?
streets there are for streets that are eligible, and we take full advantage of that, but a number of the streets in Bloomfield and roads are not on what's called the federal aid system and therefore are not eligible for the federal funds. But whatever money's out there, we're very aggressive, and particularly the engineering department's very aggressive in going after them.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mhm. Mr. Hussein, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Jonathan, is there anyone out there? Hands up for any comments?
I don't see any, but I'm not sure I'm looking in the right place, to tell you the truth.
Oh, just,
Oh, yeah. Mr. Dickinson has his hand up again.
okay.
So let's,
No.
okay, Robert,
Yeah, am I understanding we are in the next phase of the hearing?
if you want to make some comments, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess the only
We-
comment.
Actually, we're still in the question phase.
Oh,
Oh, we're still, okay, well, I'll waive until we're finished to that.
Oh, you know what? I take that back. I'm sorry. I think we might be in the comments.
thank you.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Dixon.
Okay. Yeah, as far as, of course, having a regulation like this will create sections that don't connect yet. But the hope is that over the years, when other pieces are developed or redeveloped, that some of those pieces will be filled in by developers. And then, of course, the town would try to come up with money to fill some of the gaps. An example of what has been done by a neighboring town in Windsor, if you're familiar with Day Hill Road, they have had such a regulation in their regulations requiring side paths, and so they have a couple miles now along Day Hill Road that connects, and there's and then there's some breaks, and they've got some other pieces. So hopefully we can start the ball rolling in Bloomfield to get pieces and more pieces.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. And one other thing I guess I failed to say is that anyone that's from the audience that's asking questions or making comments, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you. Jonathan, was there anyone else out there?
I do not see any others.
All right, we'll start with the commission. Actually, we'll start with Mr. Bolton. Any comments?
Thank you for giving me the first shot at it. No comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hussein,
No comments.
Mr. Ola,
No comments.
Ms. Neely,
Okay.
Ms. Blint,
Yes, this seems like a good addition to our regulations.
thank you. Mr. Goff,
I agree with Ms. Blint. A good addition. I'm totally in favor of it. Thank you.
Mr. Millet.
I think it's a great addition. Thank you to the public, especially Mr. Dickinson, who kind of has been championing a lot of this. I think it's helpful how it's written with having the option to waive it if, you know, it doesn't make any sense. But in general, it aligns with complete streets and a lot of the other goals that we've been working towards. So very much in favor of it.
Thank you. And I also concur with my commissioners. I also think it's a great addition to the regs. With that said, is there anyone else want to make any closing arguments, any closing statements on this application? Seeing none, is there a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose, abstention. Chair votes aye. Chair will take a motion on it.
And I'll make a motion to approve the text amendments to the Bloomfield zoning regulations for the following sections or topic as it pertains to the new section 6.10.f sidewalks and multi-use paths.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any further discussion?
Do we need an effective date? That one?
Let's see, what
2
did we
weeks
have?
out.
2 weeks?
Yep.
I don't think there was the memo wasn't included in here.
That's what I was looking at. All right, so we'll say with an effective date of February 8th, 2024. Thank you, Commissioner Millet.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving this motion signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose, abstention, chair votes aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, and I would ask either the secretary or Jonathan, they could read the legal notice.
I can read it because apparently it didn't get to Kevin.
Alrighty.
This notice was published in the Hartford Courant on January 12th, 2024, and again on January 19th, 2024. Legal notice, Town of Bloomfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that the Town Plan and Zoning Commission will hold its regular meeting virtually via Zoom on Thursday, January 25, 2024 at 7 p.m. to consider the following. Special permit application by Oxford Group LLC, care of Michael Burke, to operate a retail cannabis dispensary in accordance with section 4-4.1.d.4.h of the Bloomfield zoning regulations at 12 Seneca Road in the Bloomfield Center District BCD zone. Owner MCLAD LLC. Town Plan and Zoning Commission, Kevin Hussein, Secretary.
Okay. Is there anyone here to present that application?
Yeah, I gotta.
Can we, in the meantime, open the public hearing? A motion to open it, sir, Mr. Chair.
He just read the legal notice.
Oh, okay.
This is not a continuation.
Oh, this is a new one,
This
okay?
is a new one.
Okay. Thank you.
Who's here to present?
Yeah, I think it's James. I gotta find him and get him on. They didn't sign in. They weren't made a panelist.
Jonathan, their hands were raised, so I think you could just hit allow to talk, right? James and
Wincor?
Jake.
James Whitaker. Have you got him?
He's on
Is
the
he-
participant.
Is he
Yeah, I
here?
just allowed him. Anyone else?
That's who asked.
Good evening. How are you?
Okay.
Is there anyone else other than James to be added? I see there's a few hands raised too, but I don't know if that's.
It should be a Michael Burke.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
These are presenters for the application?
Yeah, okay, I got Michael Burke on.
Okay, good.
And I know Michael will let us know if there's anyone else.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes, we can, Michael. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem at all, Mr. Chair, and thank you, commissioners, for allowing us to present, and we're grateful for that. We have, I believe, 3 additional members: James Winokur, Jay Taylor, Mark Christie, and Mark Christie, who are all principals or advisors to Four Rivers Cannabis, and they're really the experts. Would like to give you a presentation that they would upload, if it's available to you, to this link. James, are you able to do that?
I don't know if anyone can hear me. I got a
Yes,
message.
we can hear you.
Okay. I don't have a sharing tool. Is there a way to allow me to share?
You should have a shared screen at the bottom,
Yeah. The green arrow.
green arrow.
I do not.
Oh, we have to probably make him a
Panelist. Yeah.
While we're doing that, we appreciate your time on this topic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Jonathan, can you make him a co-host?
You want to make, we're making Michael Burke a panelist?
No.
If you make me a panelist, then I'll be able to share my material.
Yeah.
Please.
James or Michael?
James.
Okay. I gotta find James.
Why is it spelled JMRS?
No, I think it's just spelled wrong.
Are we audible, folks? Can you hear us?
Yes, yes, you are.
Oh, thank you very much, because now we're just attempting to share screen.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so you can hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, I'm sharing my screen. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Can you just make sure you state your name and address?
Sure.
All the presenters before you talk.
Do you want my video?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure, let's do that. My name is James Winokur. I am working with FRC Holdings. My address is actually Massachusetts. So the applicants are Connecticut residents. I am not.
And to the committee, I'm Mark Christie, and I am a Bloomfield resident, 17 Burr Road, and I am the social equity licensee.
This is Jay Taylor at 1033 East 9th Street in Dallas, Texas, acting as the architect for the job.
And lastly, this is Michael Burke at 39 Hemlock Trail in Killingworth, Connecticut.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Mr. Chair, before they begin, just my own opinion here. It would be nice to be able to see who's presenting when they're speaking. They can turn the cameras on.
That's right.
You know how to do that? Turn the camera on.
I think they have to do it.
I just said Michael Burke. Where's the camera?
You should just.
Be on the lower left.
No.
Oh, if you're not a panelist, I don't know if you can do that.
Yeah, because I don't see, I just only see an icon for muting, not for camera.
Yeah, can you
Same
promote?
with Michael Burke. Same thing. Icon for muting and nothing for a camera.
Yeah, can they be promoted?
Let's promote you to be a
They
panelist.
should be, they should be able to be on camera without being promoted.
Are we joining as panelists or as attendees?
All right, I just promoted both of you as
Should be
panelists.
panelists.
Yeah, you should be able to see it now. You're both panelists.
And I think
All
Mark Christie also, you want to do him too.
And Jay Taylor.
All right. Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Hi, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, if you guys ready to go.
We are ready.
Hello.
Jay Taylor's the
Hello.
last one. If you can get on camera, but I can start if you'd like. Would you like me to proceed?
Kevin, has Jay been
Yeah,
promoted?
Jay's on right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm right here.
All righty.
All right, so thank you again. We do have some material to present. We are certainly happy to stop at any point and answer questions. Hopefully the material will provide a lot of answers. Not sure how new all of this is to you, this idea of a dispensary in Bloomfield, but we are happy to help the process along here. FRC Holdings is the company that Mark Christie is the CEO of. We're going to have a brand called Four Rivers Can. That's why you see both of those names on there. We'd like to give you some background material, starting with a company overview, a little bit of the management team. Jay Taylor, who's on, is an architect, so he has some slides to show you site images and potential renderings as well. And Michael Burke is with Oxford, who we are partnering with on the property. So quick background, company overview. FRC is an approved social equity applicant in Connecticut. The plan for the company is to hold several licenses, including cultivation, manufacturing, a lab, which is for extraction, 2 dispensaries, which require partnerships in Connecticut. The only thing we're here to talk about today is a dispensary site in Bloomfield at 12 Seneca Road. This is a little bit of a chicken and egg. Raising money in cannabis industry is a little different than most businesses. So the chicken and the egg is securing property that helps you secure the financing. So really important that we get through the process of creating these partnerships with property owners, creating LOIs, and therefore being able to go back to get the financing secured. Today, we have an LOI signed to acquire Cromwell property for a dispensary location. We are in active negotiations for an LOI that, in fact, tomorrow we will continue for the cultivation manufacturing facility. And then lastly, we're in discussions with Oxford Group negotiating an LOI for this 12 Seneca property. Any questions about that overview?
No.
Okay. The management team is primarily Hartford natives. One question that comes up in this process is what background do people have to create a successful business? I can tell you the management team is very well experienced in general business. As you'll see a little bit later on, I'm part of the team because I have a lot of cannabis experience through really the whole process. Mark, which you're happy to chime in here, Mark, as one of the founders and the founder, is originally from Hartford. Do you want to talk a little about yourself, Mark?
Yes, just briefly. I'm born and raised in Hartford. I grew up in the Blue Hills area, so had a lot of very good friends on Brookline Avenue and playing ball in Persian Park. So Bloomfield is very dear to me. Actually, my first love was a Bloomfield girl. I'll leave her unnamed, but the town is very special to me. We have this business opportunity. It's going to create some economic value, and I'd like to bring it back to the city. I went to high school at Kingswood, Oxford. I left Hartford a long time ago to go get educated, to get married, have wonderful adult children, and now I'm coming back to build on the legacy that my father and his group of friends started when they came here in the 50s as migrant workers and created a community and a small economy here. So I want to continue on in that legacy, and I hope that the town of Bloomfield will afford us the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. I am representing FRC today because of my background in cannabis. Mark and I connected through a mutual friend that I went to high school with. Actually went to Westminster in Simsbury. I'm also a Connecticut native. But I've been in the cannabis industry for 10 years, which is pretty long for this industry. The last 3.5 years, I was CEO of a company called Berkshire Roots. In cannabis world, we call that a vertically integrated company. So we did everything. We were cultivators, manufacturers, distributors. We had 2 dispensary operations. So Mark thought it was appropriate for me to be able to explain some of the nuances of how stores get established and the guidelines, regulations they have to follow, because I've had that experience. Also former owner operator of Culligan Water Conditioning franchise, is a family business. So I'm well familiar with that area. Main office for me was in South Windsor, and we covered the greater Hartford area. So it's all kind of coming home for me, back to Connecticut. This is the property we're talking about, 12 Seneca Road. I'm going to ask Jay Taylor to go through the next set of slides. He's the architect, and I will advance the slides, Jay, as you direct me.
Thank you, James. I want to say thank you, commissioners, for taking the time tonight. The next couple of slides is a kind of an overview of the site. This is an aerial shot so that we can start to orient ourselves at the property that we're looking at. If you go to the next slide, James. This site is located on Seneca Road, located within the Bloomfield Central District. These 2 slides are showing that current zoning and kind of showing that aerial, so you can see the context of that central district, where there's a lot of retail, a lot of banking, and then across those train tracks, there's single family residential. If you go to that next slide. So with this zoning request, I really wanted to make sure that we met all of the separation requirements and that we showed our due diligence. And so what this diagram shows is that 300-foot boundary distance border and the 500-foot boundary distance border to show what is located in the surrounding property. But according to regulation 7.17.4 of those cannabis separation requirements, these boundaries apply to production facilities, manufacturing facilities, delivery facilities, retailers, and cultivation facilities that we are not. We're purely a dispensary. And so we should meet all of those requirements since we're a dispensary, not a manufacturer. And this is just that map to illustrate that. Next slide. This is kind of starting to look at the actual scale of the site to orient us to see what the major participants and factors of that site are, to make sure that we show that parking count, that sanitary line, the existing egress and entrances for off of Seneca Road, as well as the handicap parking and the outline of our building. This is a more detailed site plan. And I think we've given these more detailed zoomed in portions, but this shows the actual landscape to meet those landscape requirements. It shows much more detail as far as turn radiuses, location of our building, parallel to our boundary lines, as well as how we plan to pretty much keep the existing facility, no kind of addition, no kind of add-ons, but to basically move forward with the building as it is. In the surrounding context to that, we definitely wanted to be considerate of our neighbors and the surrounding context. And so we wanted to add a fence around the property and do a beautification of a lot of landscaping in those shaded yellow areas off of Seneca Road, all within the landscaping requirements. And then this is kind of a quick aerial. If you guys have passed this property before, these are some of the factuals, the date that it was built, the type of commercial property it is, what the mechanics are, the siding of it. And I just wanted to illustrate to show that property data.
Just going to chime in, Jay, real quickly. I don't know how familiar you all are with dispensaries, but I've seen many locations across the country, even in other countries. They're all very different, whether they're in a city, like we used to have a dispensary in East Boston, it was in a city block, to being secluded like this situation. This is really the ideal situation. I am pleasantly surprised about the configuration of the property and where it sits in a commercial zone. It's really fantastic location.
Correct. With that, this is kind of an overview of how that dispensary would operate and how we try to break down the dispensary into these kind of 4 major areas just to orient you guys with the entry, the controlled check-in point. With that leads to a through security to a display area where there will be a point of sale and a separate exit that's not the same as the entrance for security reasons and just to be considerate of not mixed traffic. And then going to an additional level of security, we go into the inventory control area where there is a vault that's located away from the exterior wall to provide extra security, as well as some office space that for the owners or developer that holds no product. All product will be kept within the most secure area, which is that inventory control area in that light blue to the north.
So again, I'll just chime in here. Jay did a great job marking up the existing building and how we would configure it. There'll be more to do in terms of actual planning and layout. Most of this is dictated by state regulations. So having gone through this many times in Massachusetts, this is one of the safest kind of operations you've ever seen. From security cameras to who's allowed to access it, probably safer than any kind of liquor store or even a CVS. So we will follow, if not exceed, whatever regulations are in place in Connecticut. But this is a really good idea to show you how we segregate employee areas from consumer areas and all the security and safety that goes in not only to the regs, but how we want to operate.
Correct. And that security area happens at several different points as you enter or exit the building or enter the site and exit the site.
So in the operations that I ran, this is very typical. The list that you're seeing, this comes from the Connecticut state regulations. So security is primary and diversion is primary for any state. So all of the regulations that are in place and the manner in which you create your standard operating procedures and employee training is built around making sure you're following the regs. It's really important for us generally, but as you can imagine, there's a license at stake. So no company in this business wants to fly in the face of regulations because they could lose their license and lose their business. So it's really important that we train employees to adhere to all the regulations. I pointed out in this list per this section 21A in the Connecticut codes, particularly the things around security, like a perimeter alarm, motion detectors, video surveillance, both interior and exterior. It's all recorded. You have to save those recordings for a certain number of days. There are duress and panic alarms. We used to have hidden buttons for the register agents. So if something were to occur, they can hit a button to call the police. Noted, you may have noted, and where this is situated, the police department's right down the street too. Another deterrent, right? Train security personnel on premises all the time. So we have specialized people. They may have dual roles, but they have special training around security. And we have formal security procedures for all personnel to A, abide by, and B, to be cognizant of as consumers are in the store. And we have proper way to handle storage of products that's compliant both for products on the floor and for products that are being stored. And that was the vault area that Jay pointed out. This is all very serious stuff that we take seriously as operators for a host of reasons that I just pointed out. Jay.
So these are some of the kind of typical interior shots that you will see. This is already an existing commercial area, and we won't be adding or taking away from the existing building. It's mainly making sure that the current location is secure. And as you see, a secure location can still be something that's very appealing within that display area with how the existing windows work for this building and those point of sale counters as well as when you go back to the inventory control area, that is something that you don't see. That's more secure from a separate employee entrance.
I'll just note these are example pictures from actual dispensaries. Every state is different in terms of the regulations of what's allowed to be displayed. In some cases, you can't display the actual product, so you use fake product, so people can kind of see it. Mostly the product inventory for sale is behind the counter with employee access only. I grabbed these just to give you a sense of a real transformation. So this is a Massachusetts standalone building that was transitioned from a pool store to a cannabis company, had some, familiarity with this 12 Seneca Road. Generally what happens is there's a nice uplift to the beautification of the site, as Jay showed you in the drawings. But this is a real example of that.
Looking at the existing building that we have here, our plan is to keep the same exterior materials, definitely repair any damaged siding that is there, as well as apply several layers of paint that match our color scheme for our company, and pretty much sit within the existing context of the central business district as it sits right now, to be less disruptive of any kind of existing services.
This is our last slide. I'm going to ask Mark to talk about the last section there, but we've done some level of projection. Obviously, this is approximation. So given certain revenue, we would expect with the municipal tax at 3%, the city of Bloomfield could receive about $100,000 a year from this cannabis operation. Typical store hours, are as long as we can get and as many days as we can get, because obviously we're trying to compete with everybody else. But in this situation, we decided we really do want to give our employees the Sunday off, appropriately, we think. So we're saying 6 days a week, depending on the town and the state regulations. It's typical to be open 9 to 9. And as I said, in this case, closed on Sunday. Given the size of the building and our expectation of the operation, it likely means 15 employees. They would be W-2 employees, not independent contractors, so full benefits, time off, et cetera. It would be typical to have 2 or 3 part-time, either so we have fill-in people or to create mother's hours, which I often did. We had people who were looking for some number of hours but couldn't put in, full-time, often referred to as mother's hours. So we're suggesting that might be 12 to 13 full-time and some part-time, and typically 8 to 10 on staff at any one shift. So that's what you could expect in terms of hiring. Obviously, we're going to be looking for local people because they have to get to the dispensary, but that's certainly high preference for people in Bloomfield and the adjoining towns. Community outreach is a big part of what cannabis companies do. We had a very formal plan at Berkshire Roots. Mark and I talked about what some of those ideas were that we could take from Berkshire Roots. So consider this a draft. Mark, you want to talk about some of that?
Yes. Thank you, James. We were introduced to Michael Burke, who was, he's on the application. He has the agreement of sale for this property. And it's only been about a week, so we really hadn't had a lot of time to really personally have some conversations with some community organizations. So that will be happening very soon. And like I said earlier, I'm from the area, so we know how to navigate, and we got some folks that we can talk to that can help point us in the right directions. But what's most important is, for us and me as a leader, youth education, veterans affairs, and recidivism reduction, particularly with this commodity and this industry. I think that those 3 topics are things that if we have to reinvest in, we'd be most responsible to reinvest in those areas. Secondly, and this comes, we got this idea from Berkshire Roots, is having a monthly register roundup where, a consumer can choose to just round up their purchase And in those sense, we will collect them, gather them, and make some charitable contributions. We want to focus on 3 diseases that we think really adversely impact the BIPOC community, and that's cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. And then we're going to definitely, we believe philosophically as a company that you don't come into a community and create culture. You come into a community and you embrace culture. So it's going to be very important, and we will strategically inspire our employees to be real true participants of the Bloomfield community. And that means being active in community events. Don't just come to Bloomfield, do your job, collect a check, and leave. We need to become, a viable, vibrant, and connected part of the community. The second thing, watching what's going on. The fourth thing, watch what's going on downtown with the library. I'm a big education guy. You guys heard my story. My father was a migrant worker, and they stressed education, man. My parents sent me to Kingswood, Oxford. I got a grade that changed my life. Just that school, it opened up my mind to some other things. So, man, I want our company to support the library. We want to make sure there's some good and abundant, resources of information and access to technology. And our cash flows show that we can make some reinvestment into the community. So that's one of the areas we want to look at. And also, cannabis education. As I've been on really a 3-year crash course in cannabis, I've found that it's a very interesting and complex commodity. And so the way we're designing our cultivation facilities, we will be able to give tours inside. There's a touring area with glass, so we can start to educate folks on the process, on the plant itself. And the plant is so complex with all of the many different chemicals that are in this plant that do different things in the body. So we want to make sure that we reinvest in educating the community about this commodity.
I'll just pick up on that. I'm also on the board of directors of a nonprofit called the Association of Cannabinoid Specialists. It was founded in the Boston area by Dr. Jordan Tischler. He's a Harvard Medical School physician who saw a lot of patients, worked in Brigham and Women's Hospital, worked with the VA for many years, and had his own epiphany about the benefits of cannabis. So bringing science and medical research to this is a lot of what Mark and I talk about. And that education of both our employees and the consumers will be an important part of FRC.
And one thing before we move on to the next topic, because I just want to be very, very transparent about this to the council. I think it's important. I wasn't going to bring it up, but my dad was one of the founders of the West Indian Social Club. So naturally, I've got a lot of relationships in the West Indian community, which a lot of folks that are Bloomfield residents are from that West Indian community. So I keep my hand on the pulse, and I know that the faith community is very influential in the town of Bloomfield. And me being a man of faith and bringing, a business enterprise into that community, once again, it's not up to me to create a culture. It's for me to, conform to a culture. But I also believe that there should be a day of rest. And so that's what's embedded in this. And I hope that, us embracing a policy like this helps to add to the momentum and the initiative that the faith community already, has started and is working through in the town of Bloomfield. We want to be a part of it. I'm a kingdom guy, so I like to be a part of all kingdom initiatives. So I just wanted to be very transparent with you all about why we did that and made that decision.
That's our material. Happy to take questions.
Okay, at this time, Jonathan, we're going to hear from our director with some comments on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if you can stop sharing your screen now so
Yeah.
we can get our committee members back on, I would appreciate it.
I'm happy to, unless you think you might want to look at any of the slides that I presented.
Well, then we'll ask you to bring it back.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The staff has, one of the reasons we kept, that the hearing had to be held this evening was to be in accordance with the state statutes in terms of holding a hearing within the specified time from when an application was submitted, and this application was submitted quite some time ago. Some of the information that was presented this evening, the staff actually just saw this afternoon. And what the staff would suggest that this is that you have questions from the commission members, and you have questions and comments from the public, since we've advertised this and there's a number of them out there, and that you can keep the hearing open until the next meeting, so that the staff can, Linda and I particularly, can do a thorough review of the material that we received primarily today. Linda's been having extensive conversations with the applicant over the last couple of days. We need to get some information from them on signage, and some of the plans have to be specified in terms of the zoning regulations in terms for filing. So our suggestion is that we have the commission's questions, we have the public's questions and the public's comments, so that they don't have to come back a month from now unless they want to, and that you keep the hearing open until the next meeting, and the staff can give you its final comments at that time.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. So at this point, what we'll do is, as recommended by the director, we'll take some questions from the audience. What we'll do is we'll also, due to the amount of people here, we'll limit these to 3 minutes per question, in addition to 3 minutes per comment.
I'm not seeing any hands for some reason.
I'll keep time on that.
There we go.
If I may.
And when you ask your question or make your comments, can you please state your name and address, please, for the record?
Yes, I'm Lynette Grandy. I live at 18 Cliff Mount Drive. I feel like an interloper here on the panel because I just saw the button that said push it and I pushed it. As a retired educator, I really was thinking tonight I was going to be listening to a zoning appeal for a parcel of land in Bloomfield. But when I saw that this was the topic, I was even more interested in being here. When I woke this morning, there was breaking news of a event in California. Probably many of you know about it. And it was related to cannabis use, where a jury had convicted a person of stabbing someone 109 times. And the defense for that offense was that she was in a psychotic state from cannabis. So that's how my day started today. And then I see this meeting. So what I'd like to ask as a question is, when you did all of your planning for selecting this site, how cognizant were you of the proximity of many high schoolers, middle schoolers, college students? We have a campus for the University of Hartford right down the road from this facility area. And to my mind, I would say that we would be very remiss in placing something like this in the midst of this type of an environment. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, but I'd like to just put that out there.
Would you like me to address that?
Yes, please.
As I've mentioned, I've had a lot of years of experience, about 10 years of experience, and it's very important to locate a dispensary in a proper location. And as I stated, I think this is one of the best locations I've ever seen because of its ability to be an island. It is also true that there are many ways that people, whatever their age is, can get their hands on whatever they want to get their hands on. Getting into a dispensary is probably the hardest way to do it. Dispensaries have such tight security and ID authority. We can refuse service to anyone. We are specifically under regulation required to take anyone's ID who presents something when they're not of age, clearly, fake IDs. We have scanners to read those fake IDs. So the physical location itself is probably the least of the problems if there's a problem in the area. My daughter actually is in her 30s and is a high school teacher. This is really part of the education that we all do day to day of warning our kids about this. I've actually presented to young people to let them know that your brain is still developing and over 21 is there for a reason. They probably have much more access to other things than through a cannabis dispensary. So I am actually pretty happy about the way we can cordon this dispensary off and the security we can provide to make sure only legitimate people are going in that dispensary.
Hey, thank you. Any other hands up there? Oh, okay, yep. All right, Mr. Sharp.
Andy Sharp, 12 Crestview. We already have a high rate. Sorry, I have a headphone in. We already have a high rate of alcohol containers near the Bloomfield High School. The high school is a 12-minute walk from the proposed dispensary. How will you prevent children from accessing cannabis? I know they can't get it from inside, but people are going to litter trash and very likely share cannabis with these youth.
So I think your last part was people of age might share this. I think we just generally as a nation, as a people, have an issue with people buying alcohol for people underage or buying cannabis for people underage. It's sort of a different topic to me and one that we want to help educate people around. The specific store does not contribute to that directly. And again, we know this from all the years that we've seen in California, Colorado, Massachusetts, et cetera, where this has been available. We actually see lots of issues decline. We see opioid use decline. We see cannabis use amongst young people actually decline as they get more educated. So I appreciate that that is an issue and we should all work together on educating our young people. But even before Connecticut allowed medical, we all know from the 60s, 70s, and beyond, if people want to get cannabis, they'll get cannabis.
Security is one of the ways that we're going to focus on doing our part to prevent the wrong folks from using this product. And when I say that, I remember being a young person and doing some of the things that James was talking about doing, but it was for the package store, right? You get a guy, you give him a couple of dollars, tell him to go buy you something. He walk around and bring that little brown bag back to you. Well, we're hoping that our security efforts, our cameras that not only see everything internal but also external, and our security, our armed, trained security that will be on the perimeter of the building will be a deterrent from any of that activity. Now, somebody driving to our dispensary and then driving back to their home and then redistributing out to some younger folk, education is the only way that we can try re-influence that. You know, they say that the way you replace a bad idea is with a better idea. So we're just going to have to teach that away.
Okay. Any other questions out there?
Oh, I got the one.
I just
Gail Riley.
Okay. I don't see her. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Gail.
I see on the application that
Excuse me, Gail, can you just state your name and address, please?
Sure, Gail Riley, 8 Maple Avenue, Bloomfield.
Thank you.
I see on your original application that it was going to be a hybrid dispensary and now it's just going to be an adult use only. Can you tell me why you've changed your original model?
Sure. The initial tenant I was working with had a hybrid license awarded them, and we were unable to consummate that deal prior to running into FRC LLC. And for that reason, we decided to go with FRC LLC, and they have a license specifically for adult recreational cannabis dispensary. Does that answer your question?
I guess so.
Chair, I don't see any hands raised yet, so I don't see any other public hands raised. Here we go, Donna Hobbs.
Now we have a couple.
Yep.
You want to? I'll allow Donna in.
Sure.
Donna, you're in. Hello, Donna. Donna Hubbs. In here, I let her in.
I see that too, so maybe we'll go to the next person who is.
Go to Marcia. Marcia LaRue, are you there? You're on mute.
Okay, yes, I am here. Thank
We can
you.
hear you.
Thank you, and thank you to the panel for your diligence in investigating this. We're up against a disadvantage here because, as you've mentioned, a lot of this information is all new to us. And the people that are presenting have had time to build their case, to have exactly the right words to market this to people, and shut down any concerns that we might have. Sorry, Marshall LaRue, 7 Andrea Lane. I can see the facility from my kitchen window. And in the midst of that, I also see young children, school facilities that are all around here. All of the security that I see that you're putting in are really there to protect the facility. And you say, well, the reason that we're not going to have any issues with people is it going to be because we're going to educate everybody. And people that are educated don't have this issue. You also mentioned $100,000 that the town of Bloomfield is going to have, but I looked at the research and I see time after time that when these facilities come into these areas and you're right by our neighborhood, it's less than a stone's throw from the neighborhood that crime goes up and the black market increases to the point that it undermines the tax base that the township hopes to get. So I'm seeing these in places all over the US, and I'm seeing that this information coming in. And I know you probably have a perfectly marketable answer for that. And I look at the commission and I've watched you tonight and I find you are diligent and caring. And I say hats off to you as we walk through this to do what's right for your mission, which is stated to enhance the orderly development of the town, maintain the quality of the residential neighborhoods and business districts. And this is within a stone's throw of the residential areas. So I don't know what your marketing is that, yeah, you're going to get all this money. That's what the You're wagging in front of our face, but I'm concerned that the research shows that the crime rate goes up.
I'm not prepared with data. That is anecdotal, but the evidence actually is the reverse. So I'm happy at a later time to provide other data if you'd like. You know, the mission of the town, I think we've shown. Connecticut has decided this is okay. City of Bloomfield has decided this is okay. We're trying to present the best case we can that we think we can do a really good job for Bloomfield. And others are going to come to you and, you know, probably say the same thing, but we think we've got a unique position, especially as a social equity applicant. Those concerns about kids, we all have. This is not a kid's store. It is far less likely that someone underage can get into any dispensary that I'm aware of in Massachusetts or Connecticut versus a liquor store, other places you wouldn't want them to go. So we will do absolutely our best to be good neighbors. I have done that at the dispensaries that I operated. East Boston, I mentioned, was in a city block. So completely diverse set of people, age-wise and professions, et cetera. In 2.5 years of operations, we had no issues. We were a good contributor to the community, doing some of the things we talked about, which was helping keep the sidewalks clean, keep the parks clean, and contributing volunteer from our staff for various things and donating money. So we want to be good neighbors. We want to be good contributors to the community. And I think you'd be surprised at how separate those concerns are from reality.
I think the next hand up is Angeline
Hello, good
Rosedale.
evening. Hi, good evening. My name is Angeline and I live at 6 Andrea Lane. James, did I just hear you say that Bloomfield already gave you the permission, the okay to do this project?
No, I was referring to the state regulations and the city of Bloomfield regulations generally.
Okay. So I live right behind that building and I have 2 young children. And I want to stay on this street, 6 Andrea Lane. But I can tell you that I know from history and I've seen it. I've seen Hartford, where when you put these buildings in areas like this, residential areas, it runs down the area and the cost of houses go down because people who don't belong in this area, they're the ones who are going to come in and tear the area down, not the residents within Bloomfield. And your $100,000 is not going to fix it for us when it's run down. And then you move out and leave us in a dire situation. So please consider that, the council, that we are the people behind this building that's going to suffer with housing costs in the near future.
Thank you.
I just have one comment for all of the community listening. We're not just business people. My address is 17 Burr Road. So a lot of you folks, I'm right up the street from you. And it just is counterintuitive that, you know, a man of my seasoning would bring something foul and vile into his own community. So, you know, yes, I had to research, but more importantly, I had to check my heart and my spirit on whether this was an appropriate thing to do. And we checked all the regulations, and we would not ask for anybody to do anything that was outside the laws that have been written by the state and as you're developing for your municipality. So whatever you guys would ask of a cannabis retail operation to do to make your community safe, we will do it. Thank you.
The only hand I see up now, Mr. Chairman, is well, it's down now. It was Angelina was back up, but she took it down. There are no other. I don't see any other hands up at this point. I don't know. Kevin, do you see any?
Don't see any other.
Well, Marcia, yeah. Well, we're good.
I mean, I think they raised their hands, but I know they have additional questions. I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you're taking additional questions. I see some hands are being raised again. I don't know if it's by accident or if it's a follow-up.
I see Marcia's.
All right, let's just,
Want to let Marcia talk?
yeah, is that I don't know if it's an old hand or if it's a new hand. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Marcia, you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. And thank you for letting me talk twice. I can only believe that the people that want to put this in want to put it for what they are going to get out of it. They can say anything they want about what great citizens they're going to be, and that the employers are going to be incredible citizens as well. But this is really not for the well-being of Bloomfield. And I don't care if you live on Burr Road or next to me next door. And you can say, yeah, really it's the reverse. This is going to make Bloomfield the best place. And I delivered 55 flyers to get people to join tonight's meeting. As I spoke with them, we were in agreement that one way that you said, take an idea and add a better idea. A better idea might be, let's draw good taxpayers into Bloomfield as homeowners to make up for the revenue that this says that it's going to give us. And if we had good taxpayers, brought in great residents to Bloomfield, that would do a lot more for making our community a better community than putting in a cannabis store. And you can tell me that there's research that says the opposite, but you and I both know you can find research to say anything you want it to say.
Just a point of order, Mr. Chair. I don't know if that's a comment or a question that's coming. So I don't know. I know we have a comments part coming up too. So I know there's a couple other questions in the chat box. If we're going to go to questions,
I don't see any additional hands.
No.
Yeah, I just want to be fair to, before I get to the second answers, to address the serious questions in the chat box. Thank you.
Is that our normal?
Oh, there's
Mr.
another
Chair?
hand.
Mr. Chair, is that our normal procedure to address questions other than administrative stuff in the chat?
First, we like to address them here, and then after we get done here, we can address them in the chat.
I'm talking about the question and answer on the Zoom platform.
Yes.
Oh, is that a part of our procedure to go through those as we would with people being called on with their hands raised?
Yes. We've done that in the past.
All right, I'll just go through. I'll try to go through it quickly too, so that we don't
most of them have already been asked.
Yeah, the only one I see here, it says, I think it was Donna Hopkins saying that she was on a different computer. It appears that we have a dispensary with armed guards in the center of town when we are looking to upgrade our town center. I guess the question is that, would there be armed guards in the center of town at the dispensary?
No, there are no weapons allowed on property, employees, customers, or security. So it's actually no weapons.
So that was the only other question in the
Right.
chat box.
And I would note that that was from Donna Hubbs, who we had difficulty hearing in the first place. So hopefully that answers Donna's question.
Okay, it looked like there's a few more hands up for questions.
Mr. Chair, just for a point of order here, I do have to follow up with Commissioner Millette. I'm not familiar with the process being the reading of Q&A questions from the chat box during this process. So if that's something that we're going to implement, that would be something new. And I would also ask that if folks have already asked questions, that they give the commission opportunity to ask questions before they go back and ask second and third questions. Thank you.
Right. Well, when we allowed Marcia to ask a follow-up, at that time, there was no hands up. So I didn't mind that. In terms of the chats, I'm not sure if there's a problem with them using the chat versus the regular. So I hate to deny them an opportunity to participate.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure that we circle back so that the commission gets a chance to ask questions.
Oh, absolutely.
Timely.
You guys are next.
Timely.
You guys are next.
We have a Mr. Joseph Broden who has not talked to us before.
Exactly. Yep.
Mr. Broden, can you hear us? You need to unmute yourself.
Unmute, Joe.
Mr.
Joe, can you unmute yourself? Joe Broden?
Can you hear?
There you go.
Okay. Sorry, I just had a lot of technical difficulties here with the Zoom. Okay, so
First of all, can you state your name and address, please?
yeah, my name is Joe Broden, 39 Foothills Way, Bloomfield, Connecticut. Okay, so I'm a retired educator, and so the point I'm trying to make is, first of all, I want to address first of all, high school students have never had a problem getting hold of marijuana.
Okay.
Okay.
Joe, before you go any further, this is a question segment. So I'm not sure if this is a question or a comment.
Oh, I thought it was, I've been trying to get on for quite some time. I do apologize for my technical difficulties or my lack of technical expertise. But so if I missed my turn, then I missed my turn. I apologize. No, I just wanted to make a comment.
We're in question phase now. So if you have a question, that's fine. If you have a comment, just save it until we get to the comment part.
I'll save it until we get to the comment part. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. All right, we'll take one more follow-up. It looked like Angeline has her hand up. We'll take one more follow-up and then we'll move on to the commission.
Hey, Angeline, you need to unmute yourself.
You could be muted, unmuted now.
Thanks again. I just want to ask why did this group choose Bloomfield and not closer to where Mr. Christie lives? Because he's a little bit a distance from in town. So why choose this location and not closer to where you live?
Well, I don't know that it's that far away. Are you familiar where I live? It's all really kind of the same area, but once again, you can only select real estate properties that are available. And so that was one that was available.
And also it met the criteria for distances from sensitive other users. And the zoning was appropriate as well. So those were some additional reasons why the property was chosen.
Yeah, at this point, I don't see any further hands up. So I'm going to move on to the commission.
Really?
I'm going to move on to the commission portion for questions, and I'll start with Ms. Blunt. Any questions?
Thank you, Chair. So this is proposed for the BCD, and I don't know if I'm looking at the most updated regs, but this is an approved use in our BCD?
Yes.
Okay. And I know, we've got certain setbacks and certain requirements for the building itself, the parking, etc. According to the staff memo, Director Coleman, are you satisfied that this application meets our regs fully?
It meets the technical regulations, but remember, this is a special permit, so you have latitude to decide whether or not it meets the special permits, and that's a decision the commission really needs to wrestle with, and that's why one of the reasons we thought it would be appropriate to keep the hearing open so that you have some time to review that. But it's within the distance requirements. It's a permitted use. They're not making any physical changes to the structure. There's sufficient parking. There's going to be sufficient landscaping and screening. but you still have the more broad appropriateness, if you will, type of issues to consider under the special permit regulations.
Great. Then that's the only question I have at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Millet.
With the changes being done to the exterior, it seemed most of it was cosmetic. Is that something that could be reviewed by the design review board since it is in the BCD?
Okay, we didn't, what they were making is really not sufficient to go to the DRB. They're not doing any structural changes or anything, and they're not changing the facade or anything of that type. So we did not, Justin and I did not think it was appropriate or necessary to go to the DRB.
Okay. I'm just thinking, right now there's what, pink railings on the rendering of or the pictures. So
we just saw those today, quite frankly.
Yeah.
The pink railings are not our proposal. I believe that's the salon.
Right. But that's why I brought it up, because we do have some purview over, the look and feel. But my question was answered. It wasn't referred. I would like to hear clarification. I thought I had heard when the presentation was being made about security and outside and them being armed, and then I heard the opposite. There would be no guards outside and nobody would be carrying or have weapons.
There's no armed guards on the property. And I was the person that misspoke, but there's no armed guards on the property.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, because I heard two different things. Screening. So I heard there was some proposal for screening, upgrading the fence, landscaping. Is that going to be sufficient to block out from the neighborhood? I think I went by, I think there's a dilapidated fence that's kind of all choppy. So are we looking at something new that would be landscape that's not just a security fence? I mean, I get there's the railroad property between, but it's still visible.
So yes, we're proposing a 3-sided wood fence that surrounds the property, and the property opens up to Seneca, where there is a effort to making a large landscape buffer within that concrete area that's outlined in the site plan. The idea is that that fence, not only we chose it to be wood instead of some kind of metal to fit more within the context, as well as stop that as a barrier of anybody trying to walk behind the railroad facility, railroad tracks.
At the beginning of the presentation, I was the difference between the dispensary and the retailer, and I know we've got those defined in our regs. Can you just clarify that? I do understand from the memo that it was resubmitted as adult use only. I get the difference between the hybrid.
So you're talking about the terminology, dispensary versus retail?
Yeah.
It's one and the same. So a dispensary is the technical name, but in essence, it's a retail store.
Okay, thanks. I want to just confirm there wasn't anything, there wasn't any nuance there that I should be picking up on.
No.
That's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Goff, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess a couple of things for Mr. Winokur. We've heard we started to hear some about location of this. You've obviously had a lot of experience with this, and you've noted that all of the dispensaries, all of the different structures are different. You've probably put them in a lot of different locations. Can you talk about other locations other than a downtown area, maybe having a location, on a more remote section of the town away from the center area. What works and what doesn't work, and is there, is one preferred? Because what I'm hearing from questions from the audience is a lot of issues about proximity to areas where kids could walk in, and is that the ideal, or what has been your experience?
Yeah, the reason I said this is ideal is because the neighbors abutting across the street and next to are all commercial activity. Yes, I know there's a neighborhood, but it's on the other side of the railroad tracks. So number one, I would question the real movement from the neighborhood over to that area across the railroad tracks. The fence that you referred to is maybe not adequate, but we're proposing a better fence, at least around this property. So the ideal situation means we can manage and see all around us and make sure only people who are supposed to be there are there. In other situations that are more remote, it's hurtful to the business. So I understand the yin and the yang of that. Like, okay, but you want a successful business. Business owners want that. Hopefully the town wants that. So being in this general shopping pattern of people is good for the business. The more remote it is, the more difficult it is to attract people to go there.
And what?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, what we found in our research, in our due diligence, just on the business enterprise of this, kind of the standard across the industry is the best location for a cannabis dispensary is in a proximity wherever you see Walgreens or CVS. That's usually a good location for the business model of the dispensary. And so as we, as business folks wanting to have a successful business, we started to look in those areas, and 12 Seneca Road checks a lot of those boxes.
Yeah. And the reason I said the town wants us to be successful is we want to employ people. We want to be a good employer and corporate citizen in the town. So, everyone should want it to be successful.
So in Bloomfield, we have two craft breweries and we have a craft distillery. There are certainly advantages if we had one of those having a tap room or something in the center of town. So I certainly understand the traffic that it would generate. But all of those businesses, which are somewhat equivalent to a cannabis dispensary, those are located at the edges of town. They are located, along the Blue Hills corridor, or near it, or down in the Toby Road, Granby Street area. Because there's a lot of traffic from those, would those areas be different? Be bad for your business?
I think there are different experiences. So people are going to a tap room. They're going at different hours than they're probably shopping, and they're staying for the experience. Cannabis store is a store. So you go in the store and you leave. So it's a very different kind of transaction.
So are all of, just to educate me, are all of the, I think, are some cannabis stores by appointment only as opposed to just being open to the public?
In the states that I'm aware of, very rare. Some towns in Massachusetts started that way, but abandoned that because it's really difficult on the business to do that.
Okay. And I just have one additional question. I guess this is to the interim planner, Mr. Coleman. Going back to Commissioner Millet's comment about the design review board, I think that I would echo the fact that this is a special permit application, and obviously one of the criteria is the improvements of the location or building or whatever, the development. So I would think it would be appropriate that design review board would weigh in on how this fits in with the rest of the center, the concept of the center, and not just be something sitting out there. So I will make that plug to go along with Commissioner Millet. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Marshall Neely, any questions?
Actually, yes, I have questions. You said something about getting involved with the community. And my question is, with community events, do you see yourself marketing your business at community events that we have in Bloomfield, which
No,
Okay.
we have very specific state regulations on how we market. We just can't market to the general public like that. What we're talking about is having people, the human beings that are employed by our company, become engaged by them attending and participating in community events. So it's not just some folks that come into Bloomfield, they work a job and they leave. We want to create a culture in our company where everyone becomes a part of the Bloomfield community. Like I said, I live right up the street from this location.
I too have a huge concern with the location. And you did say that you looked at the location for purposes of a thriving business. I'm paraphrasing. However, my concern is that our community in Bloomfield is a community of people who voice their opinions when something is coming in their backyard and they don't want something in their backyard. So what you're saying is you call it a dispensary, I call it a store. It's a cannabis store. That's exactly what it is. And you said you looked at, in places where there's a CVS or something like that. Well, I know that CVS stopped selling cigarettes because it wasn't good for people. I'm not making the argument whether cannabis is good or not for people, but I'm saying I wouldn't have used that parallel. And then I thought about the security, because yes, you did say you're right over there near the Bloomfield Police Department. So does that mean that we're going to add additional work for our law enforcement officers because you want to put this cannabis store in the center of town? Can you address that? And I do have more questions.
Yeah, no, it's just the police station being visibly where it is a deterrent against criminal thought or criminal activity. It's just a physical deterrent that is a unique benefit for that specific location.
I'll just add to that, in our East Boston facility, which again was in the middle of a thriving city, had a very good relationship with the chief of police there. We met regularly. We met before we opened. He advised us on how to handle ourselves. He helped train some of our staff. And we were very proactive in making sure we were doing what they wanted us to do. So having that proximity is also helpful just to the relationship.
Mr. Winokur, you said something about you were doing this for like 10 whatever years. Well, cannabis has not been legal for all of those years. So how is it that you were doing it for 10 plus years and cannabis has not been legal for all of those years?
It actually has in different places. So my first company that I started in 2014, there were states that we were operating in and Canada, which had a national medical system when it started.
So you said Canada, that's a different animal. I'm also thinking about, you said from 9 to 9 and Sundays off. And I think 9 to 9 is a long time to be open, to your store to be open to sell cannabis. Have you considered having your business do business by appointment only?
Commissioner Millett asked that question, and my references Massachusetts, where when we first had medical, there were some towns that asked dispensaries to use that model. They've been abandoned since because it's very, very difficult for the business to see any appreciable number of people when it's appointment only.
Why does it seem like you're not concerned that you are this close to the schools? It seems like to me that you were focused on your business, but when we talk about community, we're talking about the students, the youngsters, the generations, the other generations. And it doesn't seem like you're that concerned about the proximity to the schools.
So there's, if we get to the specific concerns, we should talk about those, whether it's tonight or another time, but the physical location doesn't allow for entry for underage people. It's harder to get into a dispensary, a cannabis store, than a liquor store, for example. So the education is where, we started talking about, we recognize that underage use of cannabis is bad, and we'd love to be part of providing material, providing expertise on educating young people, but the physical proximity isn't necessarily going to change students' habits.
Okay, so again, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. I heard what you just said, but I'm still concerned about the kids. And I'd like to
understand that. I appreciate that. And we should talk about what can we do to help, mitigate concerns for kids, because it's not going to be that they're going to get into the store.
That's something you should think about and present that to us, and think about other options that you can do to make sure that our kids are safe, that our kids are not giving their older brother or sibling, hey, can you go get some and I can take it to the school and sell it to people in my school. So that's why I think that it would be beneficial if you as a company, not you as a person, had appointments where people would come in by appointment only.
Well, I'm not, I appreciate there are ideas that we should talk about. Even an older brother as an appointment could do the same thing that you just said. So there's a lot to think about there, but our main focus is to make sure people are educated and to make sure only people who are allowed to can come in the physical location.
Okay, so I worked on the T21 when I was in another capacity in the town, and so I am fully aware of cannabis and what the pros and cons are with regard to cannabis, because I worked on T21. I'm just so concerned about our kids. I'm concerned about the proximity to the schools and the proximity to some of the residents who are speaking out saying, yeah, but we don't want this in our backyard. So what do you do to calm the waters when it comes to the community who's saying, this is in our backyard, we don't want this in our backyard? What do you say to them?
There's probably more forums, that we would need to do to educate those neighbors and educate others in the town that are concerned. And we are certainly open to taking ideas from others as to what we can do in that specific site to mitigate concerns. And that's what I did for example, in East Boston. Like I said, it's in the middle of the city. So everybody was there. So we took lots of ideas from, the folks around us of what we could do to make sure that they felt comfortable with it.
So I understand East Boston, but we can't compare the big city to our community, Bloomfield, right?
Well, what I meant was it was less separated. It was even more densely populated and more potential, issues that people thought of. And we just work with the community the best we can to help make sure we're running our store the way that fits into the community.
Yeah, I just want the council to understand that in no way do we want to force anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. You have to understand our journey in this. So we look at, okay, we're looking for a location. Where is there a jurisdiction that legally allows for this activity? And all the jurisdictions that said this is legal said it's legal within certain guidelines. And we showed a slide that showed that we did actually measure out to make sure that we were inside everything that the town wanted now, or that the town legislated. Now, we understand that the next step is to have conversations like this so that we can help to satisfy even the things that are concerns outside of the legislation. So I just want y'all to continue to remember that when this started, we did comply with what the town of Bloomfield had already legislated. Now we're going through these other opinions, perspectives, because it's got to be a happy medium. Everybody's got to be heard, and this has got to make sense for all because we are a community. And if we're a neighbor that the community doesn't want, I gotta respect that. But let's all be heard, and let's take the time to understand each other, because a lot of this is about relationship. If folk on this committee and this council knew me for 40 years, you may have a different opinion of me as a steward over this business enterprise than if you never knew me and just hearing me talk about things tonight. So maybe it's just going to take some more dialogue, some more communication, some more questions, and some more responses. But we're here for that. I mean, we want to go through that process with you all.
Are you open to having a community forum in person, not on Zoom, and having the community attend to talk to you about their concerns? Because a lot of them have had and expressed technical difficulties, and they would like to be heard, but they can't get on, or for whatever reason. Are you open to hosting a community forum and inviting the community to hear more about what you're doing?
Whatever this council requires of us as per the requirement for businesses going through this process, we would absolutely honor and respect what you all prescribe, what we have to do.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my last question.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject one thing in response to Jennifer's request and suggestion. If in fact that type of public forum occurs, I would urge the members of the commission not to attend, because you are supposed to take all of your data in only at a public hearing like this.
Yep.
So just bear that in mind, that if they do, and it's probably a good idea, if they have a public forum, unfortunately, members of the commission cannot attend that forum to protect the integrity of the public hearing process.
Okay. And Ms. Neely, if you are done with the questions, we probably would move on to the next one. We're still going to have some time at the next meeting, so it'll give you some time to think of some other things. But at least we can kind of keep it moving a little. But I appreciate your weighing in. Next, Mr. Hussein, any questions?
Yes, I have a few. I'll try to make them as shorter as possible because of the fact that we haven't seen the site plan and some of the other information, which will be presented back to the director or interim director, which will then be sent over for us for additional comments. Yeah. I know the fence you showed, and I think Mr. Commissioner Millett mentioned that it looks more like a security fence. I think you'd need to consider, don't want to make it look like a security fence per se, but more something more decorative, or that matches some of the other properties in town, center of town, in the BCD. Couple of questions I have though is that you mentioned 15 people would be potentially working full-time, or I think 2 or 3 part-time. What percentage can you guarantee that are going to be Bloomfield residents if you were to do that?
Well, I think what we wrote was we will favor people from Bloomfield. I know from experience that we have to draw from the available pool. So you post jobs, you go out and recruit, and you try and do the best you can to recruit from the town. But there's no guarantee because we just don't know who's going to be available, right?
Okay. And then I know, Mr. Christie, you mentioned that because you brought this up, I'll bring it up. And I think someone touched on it earlier too, talking about giving back. And I think the way you mentioned it about the library and some other stuff, and I wasn't sure if you meant also in education or but actually the actual company, what's it, Four Seasons or for FRC.
For Rivers, yep.
Yeah, for FRC. Now, based on the projected percentage of sales that you said we're going to get about 100K, that turns out to be about 3.5 million of sales per year for you guys. What profit would that be, and what percentage of that, if any, would go back to the town for some of these educational and community development programs? Just forecasting based, since you gave us the numbers.
Well, I don't want to forecast, a number of our charitable contribution, because that's going to be based on what the net revenues that are left. But I will say that, we do want to make financial commitments to education, to the library. I personally want to make a financial commitment for some young people to travel abroad. And I've been to Africa about 6 times, and I think that for BIPOC young folks, that's an incredible experience. And some of our profits can work with the school and underwrite programming like that.
That's fine. I agree with I agree with your concept or your program, what you want to do. Since you guys brought up the financial commitment, what you think the sales are going to be, I would have liked to see a number. Just speaking numbers, I know hypothetical or not, that you would have probably included in your application to say, since you're speaking about education, how it benefits the town. And then I know James, you mentioned that one of the examples you showed beautification of a similar store in, I believe it was Massachusetts, and you talk about beautification. And I think, again, Commissioner Millet brought us up, and again, we'll explore it more once we see your site plans and your additional stuff. But just painting the brick or painting the wood is not beautification. So we would expect you guys, when you submit your site plan and your new stuff, to make it actually really beautification, right?
Yeah, I think, sorry, I had to interrupt. I think Jay did a better job with the renderings of this site than that company did, but I just wanted to give an example of the
but Jay's presentation said, "Oh, we're just going to paint the wood and we're going to paint the concrete." And I think when you guys present that, I don't think that would probably be matched what, especially if the interim directors mentioned that we didn't need to go to the design review board, then you should put some more thought into the materials that you're going to put.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And then, and quickly, I'll just say this. I know you said it's just preliminary, but the point of sale seemed to be digital. And I don't know if your intention was it to be a touchscreen digital and then they pick it up, or are you doing an actual counter?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, but the typical process is you go to the counter, you speak to the register agent, they get the product for you, and you have a typical register.
One of the samples you showed, you had customers on like a digital computer screen. So I wasn't sure they were putting in their order and then they pick it up. And I don't know if that was just a sample or
how. I mean, that's, I don't know that we have determined what the process will be, but that is also typical in some dispensaries where you have the option for a consumer to put in their order, but they still go to a pickup register to pick it up.
Yeah, you order on the screen. You always have to pick up at the counter. So that process, you give your ID, they scan the ID, then they execute the transaction.
All right. And now, from the initial question you mentioned, or sorry, some of the assets you already have, you mentioned you have some additional facilities, correct? Both cultivation and or dispensaries, or just only
negotiating those?
Yeah, okay, negotiating.
So you don't have any other actual assets in terms in this industry so far, correct?
No, I do not. I'm a new social equity applicant. I was one of the folks that they gave the new opportunity to participate.
All right, I was going to ask this question for your other facilities, but since you don't have any, if you can pull this into your next submission or your presentation, is identify any criminal activity or reports within similar facilities in that neighborhood, so that in a similar BCD type zone, so we can know too. Again, I thought you had additional facilities, but having some of that criminal activity or reports could give us an idea of, and again, maybe help paint the picture for us. So
yes.
Mr. Chair, I know there's still a lot more stuff going on, but I'll defer a lot of my questions to the next one so my other commissioners can present. Thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Hussein, just before we go, I'm going to I'm going to run some more in-depth projections. Since we do have time to come together again, I'm going to run some more in-depth projections and give you an actual projected range of what that monetary financial contribution would look like and what directions it might go.
And the intention is not, it's not a, I don't want it to make it seem like it's a pay to play. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you're giving back to programs in Bloomfield, if you can identify, education, yes, high school or trips and stuff like that, you don't have to put any financial, nothing, but just saying a percentage of X, Y, or Z would be going to education. And that's what I think Commissioner Marshall Neely mentioned about education and especially your kids.
Very
That's
good.
what
I'll
I
have
think.
that for you.
Thank
I'll
you.
have that for you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Ola, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know much about cannabis, or except for beside what I've heard. I've heard that there is some medical use for it. Now, there are certain aspects of this that is frightening to people. There's some bad, it has a bad name. I would like us to look at that. What are the bad things that go with this that frightens people so that we can, I think we need to address that. Maybe if those questions are answered, maybe people can see for themselves and understand, because there's a bogeyman that a lot of us don't understand the bad things, this addiction. I mean, people are afraid for their children to get involved with marijuana. Is it a matter of addiction? And at the same time, you're talking about giving scholarship to children and education programs, which is kind of like attracting children to these things, which their parents, I don't want my children to get involved with marijuana and cannabis. I don't know why, but I've just, from what I've gathered, that there's something bad about getting involved with marijuana and cannabis. So I think we want to go there and maybe we'll understand, get down to the bottom of what the danger is in this thing. Now, and then, concern about children. And then as a commission, I think we really need to.
Excuse me, Ola, this is questions for them. So if you have comments, we're going to do that at the next meeting.
Okay.
But if you have any further questions, by all means.
Okay.
You can ask that now.
Okay, well, again, they can maybe they can help with that question. Is what is the bad thing about this cannabis that it frightens people to get involved?
I'm happy to address that, and I'll take it as an action item that we provide actual material, for you as well. I mentioned that I'm on the Association of Cannabinoid Specialists, which is a physician-founded, medical research-oriented organization, nonprofit, science-based. So the issue is cannabis has been touted for many years since the Nixon administration as no medical use. So the DEA put cannabis on the Schedule 1 on the same schedule as heroin. We now know that there's plenty of medical benefits, but people have been scared about it. They've been scared that it's a gateway drug, and that's been proven not to be true. They've been scared that it's highly addictive. It's not zero. There is an addiction rate, but it's much lower than alcohol and certainly much lower than opioids and other narcotics. So it's not zero. There are issues, but we know from science that those issues are fairly benign, not completely benign, but I'm happy to provide more data and information about that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bolton.
Oh, you didn't forget me.
Last but not least.
Wow. Well, Mr. Taylor and Mr. Winokur and Mr. Christie, thank you for your presentation. Being last to ask questions on such an esteemed commission with such intelligent commissioners almost guarantees every one of my questions would have been asked already. Something did pop up since all my questions were asked. When it came to security, this is the center of town for us, and you did clarify that there would be no armed security, which is great. So you're going to have, I'm assuming, security cameras that are internal to your operation, external for security, the parking lot and watching folks that are coming into and out of the facility. From 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., you're going to be open. Paint for me the picture of what is a normal or typical Bloomfield resident going to see in terms of the physical presence for security. One guard outside, nobody outside, two guards inside. What are we going to see? It's the center of town for us, and so we're not used to that type of presence, even at the police station, right? And so paint that picture for me so I can see what we can expect in terms of a security presence.
Yeah, I mean, number one, I'll say we're going to address how the town would like us to address that. But typically, there's a camera at the front door. And in order to get through the first door, you have to present an ID that security inside is looking at to determine whether that's a valid ID before you can even get in the building. Once you're in the building, you have to present your ID in person to that security person, and you're in what's called a man trap. So there's another door into the dispensary that you can't get through. Once your ID is validated, then you can go through. In a situation where there are people outside, so in the heyday, and I don't think this happens anymore, when there were lines of people waiting to get in, there's security outside. We don't see that anymore in cannabis industry. Those heydays are kind of gone. So I wouldn't expect that there'll be physical presence unless and until we need to send security outside. So for example, we don't allow interaction or the movement of the cannabis product that was just purchased to somebody else on premise. So if we see that kind of activity, we ask those people to leave. If we see someone who doesn't look like they want to come in the dispensary talking to someone in the situation I think Mark suggested where they're asking someone to buy for them, we remove them from the property. We don't allow either party in.
So from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., you would have how many security folks from that duration?
So that is typically two people, one in that booth and one is watching the cameras.
The booth is inside the building or exterior?
Correct, in the building. Yeah. That's the one who's looking at the door ID.
And no one will be armed inside the building?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will reserve my opinion on the suitability of the location for this use to my comments. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. And I just have one question for Jonathan, and that's regarding, I know we're in the process of the plan of conservation development. And I'm just curious as to, was there any prior mention of any cannabis or anything like that in terms of being in the business center district? You're muted, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry about that. As far as I know, Mr. Chairman, there's no mention in the existing POCD of cannabis. It was prepared now 12 years ago. I'm not sure cannabis retail sales or otherwise was on the horizon at that point in the presence that it's being now. I would note, however, I was not present at that time, but in a year and a half ago, the commission went through a process of actually adding to the zoning regulations, the regulations directly related to the both the cultivation and the retail sale of cannabis. And I assume at that time you made a determination that it was appropriate as a use in town and was appropriate as a use at these locations. That's not to say that you can't change your mind, but you did go through that process. And you have, as you're aware, you've had two cultivation applications, and this is the first retail application, but you did go through fairly extensive process of developing and adding to the zoning regulations, specific regulations related to both the cultivation and the retail sale of cannabis.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I was more concerned about the location in the center. I guess, and I'll probably reserve most of mine for when the application is fully completed, because I do have concerns more about the location. And not necessarily in Bloomfield itself, but I share some of the concerns. I think Commissioner Goff had mentioned about where some of the breweries are and the locations there, in addition to where the cultivation centers are. And so I do share some concerns about the location, but I'll save that for the next one.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can I ask one follow-up question?
absolutely.
Yes. Just one other thing I would like to address and just have an answer. We've talked a lot about the security. What is the customer flow you expect at this store? How, you know, in an average day, what do you how many customers would you expect? Do you expect, you know, in other stores you have or other operations you've worked with, is it mostly local? What's the percentage of local versus out of town? I don't know exactly what the configuration around Bloomfield is in terms of other towns that are allowing cannabis retail. So could you just address those issues? Thanks.
I'm going to ask Mark, you know, as part of his planning to address that. I was just mentioning the landscape's changed a lot in the industry. So every state experiences sort of the same cadence, but Connecticut's surrounded by Massachusetts and New York is coming online. So things are changing as we speak. You have not had adult use cannabis. So typically what happens, state starts with medical, certain number of people are interested in that, and they have to go through the governmental process of getting a medical card. More people are interested in not doing that. So adult use has a higher volume than medical does. In the beginning, there's very few dispensaries. Supply is low, not a lot of outlets. More supply comes on, more demand, and then all of a sudden there's more dispensaries, so it gets dispersed more. So you will see a change over time. As this starts, you may have heavier traffic. Then as Connecticut develops more and more dispensaries, people tend to shop locally. So I would say the eventual state is that this will be a local dispensary to people in Bloomfield. I'll let Mark speak to volume, but I don't know what that means, Mark, in terms of your forecast, in terms of number of people a day.
Well, I hesitate to give a number, and this is why. For the last 2 years that I've been active in this business, you know, studying it as a CEO and an entrepreneur, what I found is the numbers that we're all looking at right now is not a reflection of the true market. And there are a number of forces that make it difficult to quantify what exactly is the true demand. And because supply is an input that you have to put in to get an idea of what that kind of equilibrium demand in that market is going to be. And it's really tough right now because there's still only 4. And I know you guys see all of the articles and all these reports of activity, but 2 years later, there still are only 4 people cultivating cannabis in the state of Connecticut. So that means that the supply is still the same. And so as James was talking about, we really haven't seen those long lines. And a lot of that is because of the pace of the rollout of the economics. And the state and the legislators really kind of control that. Because as a business person, I would have probably done some things a little differently. Because I don't like not being able to quantify, you know, what can I estimate as my traffic, my daily traffic being. Because when I look at what's going on with other stores, it is no true reflection of the adult use market. I don't foresee lines around the block. I don't foresee, you know, cars piling up and blocking traffic. I don't see people standing in long lines. You know, me being from that area and knowing the demographics, I think we'll probably see a slow, steady trickle of customers up through about 5:30-ish, because 4:30 is when folks start to let out from work. And then, you know, activity will probably pick up. And the only time it'll probably be, you know, busy, I would think would be a weekend. That's just my estimation. And I'll try to give you some numbers in our next meeting, but I will couch it that these are just projections, because nobody really has a real handle on what this market can do yet.
Okay, thank you. All right, what we're gonna do here, we're gonna suspend the comments for the commission, but we'll take some comments from the audience.
We have Hope Bruff, who's been waiting for a long time. Hope, you there? You're muted.
I'm okay now.
Okay, you're okay. We can hear you.
Okay.
Can you
So
just state before you start, can you state your name and address, please?
Oh.
For the record.
My name is Hope Ruff from 18 Brentwood Drive. My house is directly behind the building. I stay in my bathroom, my living room, and everything, and I see everything that goes on. It's terrible. So it won't be there. So I'd need you to consider going somewhere else, another location. 'Cause I'm not moving from my house. What is good?
Okay, thank you. I don't.
Uh,
Oh, okay, I see.
Lynette Grand.
Can you
Lynette?
unmute yourself? Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Listening to the people speaking.
Excuse me, Lynette.
Oh, Lynette Grandy, 18 Cliff Mount Drive.
Thank you.
Listening to the comments being made tonight, it just really creates a whole different layer of this, really trying to help us understand what this is all about, because we have a decaying center of Bloomfield, Connecticut. And our purpose for remaining to be a wonderful suburban community to Hartford is to maintain or improve what we have here. And it makes no sense to add something with all of this controversy to a situation that already needs so much more of our attention than we can. You're talking about contributing to a library. We don't even have a library right now that's in its full force. So it just seems like this is so premature, and to find something outside of this Bloomfield Center seems to me to be the best solution for all of you, rather than wasting the time. Because I don't think between the homeowners and the people, all of us who've become rather disgruntled with the declining quality of what's happening in the center of Bloomfield, I just don't think this is the right proposal to be making. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Joe Broughton.
Joe Broughton.
Have to unmute yourself. Okay.
So this is the comment section. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. I can make a comment. So you know something.
Joe,
yeah.
Excuse me. Before you
Yes.
start, can you just state your name and address, please?
Um.
And anyone that's talking, please just state your name and address for the record.
Joe Broughton, 39 Foothills Way, Bloomfield, Connecticut. Oh, okay. So I grew up in Bloomfield. I've lived in Bloomfield most of my life. I graduated from Bloomfield High. And like I said, I'm a retired educator. So there's a couple of things I like to address. So first of all, as far as having a cannabis shop there, high school students have never had a problem getting a hold to cannabis. So having a dispensary there is not going to improve or delete from the problem. So I'm just, it's like I'm not for or against this, but a lot of the arguments being put forth, I'm just not buying right now. And it's like a cannabis shop there is going to run down the center of Bloomfield. Well, you know, the center of Bloomfield has some issues even before this. And I think the planning commission might want to concentrate on bringing more high-end retail shops to the town of Bloomfield, because we have a plethora of low-end retail shops. And I don't think that's doing anything to enhance our town. As far as movement is concerned, yeah, it's in the center of town, but it's sort of tucked in a corner and nobody really goes back there. So I'm not really sure that's a legitimate concern. As far as community events is concerned, if this organization was to donate or invest in community action, organizations, nonprofits who have proven to do good work and who are already working in the town, I think that could be a positive. I understand people's concerns about it being in their backyard. I really do. And I think that's the real concern. I think the real concern here is the location. That and you know, and that's something for the committee, for the committee to address. And so I think that's all I have to say right now.
Okay.
On the subject. I like the fact that they're going to produce jobs. We're going to get tax benefits from it, that they're going to invest in the community. Those are all good things. And so we just have to weigh the pros and cons and figure out, you know, where we are on the subject. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim.
I do not see any other hands, Mr. Chairman.
I sure don't. Okay, at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to continue this public hearing
Make a motion to
to
continue.
our next meeting, which is
Second.
February 22nd.
February 22nd, 2024.
Second.
Was it seconded?
Yes.
Kevin, name.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the continuation? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, chair votes aye. So we'll see you guys next month.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time, attention, questions. Looking forward to the next step.
Okay,
Thank you, Commissioners.
all righty, thank you. Next item on the agenda is under new business. It's a petition from David S. Ziyax and F.A. Hessick and Associates Incorporated to modify a condition of approval associated with the new apartment building at 57 Jolly Drive, which was approved on October 26, 2023. The condition modification would alter the requirement that the two lots be legally combined into one. Staff updates and referral. Jonathan, you want to give us a little background on this?
Yes, when the commission approved this application, one of its conditions was that the two lots would be combined. Subsequently, the applicant, through Mr. Ziyax, came back and requested, as he has here, that for the purposes of planning and zoning, that the two lots would be combined and compared as a single lot. But for financing purposes, as we understand it, they might be separated to allow the sale of one part of the property, but there would still be sufficient cross easements and everything to protect the interests of planning and zoning. Justin was comfortable with this, and the town engineer and the wetlands agents were also comfortable with this. I do not see Mr. Zayas on, but I do see Mr. Zellman on, and maybe he does wish to make some comments. I'm going to allow Mr. Zellman to talk.
Okay.
Brian?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you, Jonathan and commissioners. I'll make this brief. I think you sort of spelled it out. The condition to combine the two parcels creates a challenge to finance the construction of the second building. We have a lender and permanent debt on the first building, and that institution, has a lien on that property. So we'd like to keep them separate. But for the purposes of the zoning approvals and all of the compliance, at least as of now, they're under the same, not the same ownership entity, but common interests in the different entities. It's possible that one would be sold without the other, but all of the protections of cross easements, et cetera, would be in place. Just a note that when we received our approvals for the first building at 65 Jolly, that was four separate parcels that received the approvals that covered all four parcels. They were at a later date combined. I don't know whether or not that was a condition of the first approval, but they were not combined, right away. So, we sort of look at it as the same matter. It's sort of a technical and administrative thing more than anything else.
Hey, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, the staff is comfortable with this from a planning and zoning and filing and compliance point of view with the approvals of the commission.
Okay, great, thank you. This is not a public hearing, so we won't be hearing from the audience, but we will take some questions and comments from the commission, and I'll start with Ms. Blunt. You have any questions on this?
Will we be hearing about this again in the future? Because it seems like we have heard this come up numerous times. So I know it's a very complex project, and you guys are handling a lot over there, but not to be silly about it. I don't really have any questions, but to my point, I mean, is there another parcel on the property that you would potentially consider developing in the future that would have to be combined or considered in some other way?
I don't believe so. Understood. We've been at this a while from the first one to the second one. I don't envision us coming back for anything. There's nothing I could contemplate. All the properties across the street from us are wet. Everything else around us is mostly in conservation easement. Unless the thriving building next door becomes unthriving and there's an opportunity, to further the development, but that seems unlikely based on that building. I know, part of this contemplated the redrawing of the lot lines, but the discussion with staff has been that could be done administratively. And that likely will happen at some point with staff approval.
Great, thank you.
Next, Mr. Millet, any questions?
So is there an easement in place right now?
There's not an easement in place now between the two properties.
So would, as a condition of reapproving, typically, if I'm remembering, our normal practice is as a matter of condition, the properties either are combined or there's a permanent easement. Either it has typically, I think, been our normal thing. So that would probably be what, I would be looking for. Assuming that without the easement or without the combination or the combining, the project would not meet the regs on their own individually, or would they?
That's a good question. Redrawing the lot line, I think accomplishes most everything, but there's a possibility that I don't want to speak out of turn here without having, our engineer. I believe it would comply, but it wouldn't be in accordance with the original approval, which was based on the entirety of both parcels. So redrawing the lot line would give the 57 parcel the minimum lot size. And then if they remain separate, we would need a parking agreement between the two, I believe, for 57 to utilize approximately 5 or 6 spaces from 65 to comply, which 65 has because it's over parked according to the regs. But we would not be. I mean, we intend on drafting these easements anyway for our own usage, for the usage of the requirements of our lenders, et cetera. I guess I wouldn't be opposed to making that a condition, so long as they were able to be approved by staff at that point, and we wouldn't need to come back to the commission for approval.
I think I'd be comfortable with the easement, or if this line thing adjustment makes it work. I just want to make sure that we're not in a situation where down the line, the owners change and there's an issue with, sharing what used to be shared. So that's our concern.
Yeah, I mean, aside from parking, which 57, I again wouldn't necessarily be in compliance on its own with. I don't know that there really is, other than the outdoor, area, which is an amenity and is sort of, discretionary. I mean, it's on the site plan as part of the approvals, but I'm not sure there's anything really technically to be shared. Both properties are accessed directly from the public roadway.
It was mostly parking that I was concerned about.
Okay.
Just parking. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Goff, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to understand completely what the cross easements are, and I think I got some flavor of that from Commissioner Millet's questions and the responses. So through you, Mr. Chair, to staff,
Yes.
Is that the case that we need to, do we have an enumeration of what cross easements would be needed? Is it only parking? Is that the only thing, or is that dependent on moving the lines? It does seem to me that whatever is being done here should be put in place, at least in lieu of combining the properties. So,
Commissioner, parking is the one that we would be most concerned about. And the one that we would not, that's the one we would need a cross easement for.
thank you. No further questions.
Okay. Ola, any questions?
Well, this is probably more for my own edification. Looking at the drawing, there are some gaps. There seems to be some gaps between the two properties. Is it possible to combine two properties? I mean, with the gap between them, if they are not physically connected?
I'm not familiar with what map you're looking at, but the two properties do abut each other.
Abut each other, okay.
Yeah, they do abut each other.
Are these the blue, light blue, that are light blue sections? Are those the two properties?
Again, I don't have.
Ryan, that may be your conservation easement part.
Yeah, it may be the wetlands demarked, or it may be the conservation easement, but the property lines, they do touch each other. The property abuts from boundary to boundary.
Okay. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bolton, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
Mr. Hussein.
Yeah, quickly, I do share the same concern as Commissioner Millet. So I want to get back to 65. You said those 4 parcels were legally combined, or were they in the same situation of for the purpose of Duncan planning and zoning, that they were just shall be considered a single lot, or were they actually legally combined?
They were legally combined, but I don't know that they were legally I don't know if that was a condition, and I don't believe that we legally combined them at the stage that we would have been required to here, but they were legally combined.
Okay, but then now because of the financing part, I understand why you don't want them to be legally combined, but I am still a little, I share some of the same concern as Mr. Millet too, where I don't want to have a disjointed 2 properties if we eventually have separate owners, right? So I want to make sure that we are the town or the TPZ is safeguarded. And I almost want to just, and I hate to do this, but I'd want to just refer this back maybe through the chair to the planner to get maybe to safeguard, to get some of the input from the town attorney, just to make sure that we are good. I don't know if is that pushing it too far or just to be in the safe side.
If I could just point out that it's a fairly common practice for properties to not be combined, but to fall under the same zoning approvals. You have it in shopping centers when you have out parcels.
No, I don't disagree with you, Mr. Zellman. I'm just saying because the 65 were legally combined, that's fine. But now that we initially said 57 and 65 were going to be legally combined because we thought it as a one big campus. But now that you want us to kind of keep it disjointed with the potential of selling that one, I'm worried about some disjointedness and potential, like Commissioner Millet mentioned about probably have 2 owners that are not, seeing eye to eye, and then we're going to be stuck in some sort of drama. So again, I don't have an issue or problem with what you presented. I would probably just to make sure we get some legal opinion from the attorney, just to make sure the town and the TPC is pretty well safeguarded.
Jonathan, you want to take that? Do you think that's
We can, if the commission wants that, we will make a request of the town attorney. I mean, that's, we planners are not attorneys. And if, members of the commission want a legal opinion from the town attorney, you're obviously certainly entitled to request it. And, we will, put that request, tomorrow. And, it would obviously not come back until your meeting in February.
If I could just, comment that, understand the concern there. I would think that the easement to the satisfaction of staff could satisfy that. But I'll leave it up to the commission.
Honestly, again, with the 4 parcels originally being legally combined, and then the intent was to have 57 and 65 being combined so that it becomes one. When we approved it, we thought initially it was going to be one giant campus. I understand the financing part of it, and I understand why you're doing it now, and I 100% agree with you. But again, I would prefer to feel safer seeing that we already passed it as being legally combined. Now to kind of make it disjointed or just to get rid of that legal combination, I would prefer to just get a professional opinion from the attorney to make sure that the town and TPZ is safeguarded. Indeed, you were able to sell the 2 properties. That's just my that'd be my suggestion to the commission.
I don't have a problem with it. If that's the wishes of the commission, we can continue this.
Mr. Chair, maybe I have a follow-up.
Sure.
Would it be okay if we, or are we going down the road of an easement in lieu of, or as a condition of approval, or to move forward? Because if that easement's in, I think that takes care of. I wouldn't need the attorney on that if it's actually executed. Or I guess it would be deeded
Brian?
somehow. Again, I'm not an attorney either. So,
Brian, do you want to address that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's up to the commission. I mean, I think an easement satisfies, and is typical to satisfy, the concerns, and we'd be okay with the condition of the approval being an easement to the satisfaction of the commission. But that's up to you guys to decide which, which path you would like to take. Well, I don't know if it's also possible for an approval conditioned upon, legal review and acceptance. I don't know if that's a thing that you guys do or not.
Mr. Golf had his hand up.
I did. And then the comment was made about, could
Easement?
you approach this with legal review also included? Because I agree with Commissioner Hussein that we should have a I mean, this is complicated for the layperson or the person not understanding exactly what the pros and cons here are and what the effects would be down the road if the two parcels got separated with different owners and there was contention. So I certainly would like to have that legal opinion. And I think that's, that protects everyone. It doesn't sound like there's any urgency to this. Is that correct, Mr. Zellman?
I mean, there's always urgency on our business, but we're not putting a shovel in the ground tomorrow. So, not that much urgency.
Again, Brian, I think this is I think we're fine with doing it, but we just want to safeguard ourselves. Again, this is nothing against you or the parcel, but the fact that the potential that it can be sold separately. And again, even with Commissioner Millet, I don't mind the easement, but again, I would have to have a pretty delineated easement, have to figure out what's length and widths and stuff like that, and then what also that pertains to if they were to be separate owners. And so again, I'm just worried when you said separate owners. I just want to make sure that we're covered with or without an easement. So I just think a legal opinion would be helpful for the commission to make a decision.
Yeah, understood. I'll ask the question again. Is there any way to to vote tonight with the condition of the legal approval, so it doesn't have to go back in front of the commission again, and the attorneys can be the final arbiter, so to speak?
I think the preference would be to get the legal opinion first. In the event that if we voted, we approved it, and then it comes back with something else, then that means we still have to come back here again to deal with that. So I'm more in favor of just getting a legal opinion, coming back next month and just wrapping it up.
Understood. I guess what I would suggest is, and we can, communicate this through staff, but, in all likelihood, the attorneys are going to say, okay, that's great, but what is the easement going to say? So we've already instructed our attorneys to start putting the easement together. I think, maybe before the town's attorneys weigh in, we try to get our easement wrapped up and provide it to them so they can just look at it and say, this is good, it covers everything, and then give you direction based on the actual easement, not the theory of an easement.
Okay, that's fine. Well,
do we need a motion or do we just need to let Jonathan know, I guess?
No, I think we'll make a motion to continue this.
All right, so I'll make a motion to continue the petition from David S. Zayek, F.A. Haskett Associates, Inc. to modify condition of approval associated with the new apartment building at 57 Jolly Drive, which was approved on October 26, 2023. The condition modification will alter the requirement that the two lots be legally combined into one. And the commission would like to have the town attorney review and provide guidance if in the event that the property were to be separated and has different owners, and also look at the potential of an easement to also resolve this issue.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of continuing this to our February 22nd meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, chair votes aye. Okay, next item on the agenda is staff comments or updates.
Well, no more updates I give you. No other. I obviously miss Justin would like to recognize all the assistance and work that, good work that Linda's doing. She's really stepped up and helped me a lot as I get into the weeds. I'd like to thank Kevin tonight for guiding me through where I was messing up with the electronic side of things. I promise to be better next time.
Hey, listen, it was your first time, and
Teamwork.
you know, we probably should have just apologized to everyone because they probably didn't understand it was your first time. So that was kind of like my fault. I should have done that.
No apology necessary. I am, I should be prepared. And we'll do it better next time. And I look forward to, we will gather the information on the cannabis, and we will get a hold of the town attorney on Mr. Zayek's petition so that we are prepared at the next meeting. And look forward to continue working with all of you, and thank you all for the service and time that you are providing to the community.
Okay, thank you. And we'd like to welcome our newest member, Mr. Kevin Goff. Welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate your contributions already. So we looking forward to continuing to work together.
Thank you. I thank you, Mr. Chair. I've certainly enjoyed the evening, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Fantastic. At this time, we'll entertain the magic words.
So moved.
Don't all say it at once. All right, our meeting is adjourned.
Good night, all. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Okay.
Thank
Take
you very
care.
much.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, John. Welcome.
Thank you all. Good
Hey,
night.
thanks a lot, Kevin. Appreciate stepping in there.
No problem.
Yes.
Thanks.
Nice job.
Good night.